Everyone, Tim Brown. Welcome back to my Output Podcast. Today I want to review an application called Plotograph. It's an application that enables you to animate your photos. It's right now one of the most popular apps in the App Store. So what you're looking at here is the basic interface, and I have selected the information icon or the eye icon so that you can see what each icon represents. So at the top left, you can go back to where your projects are and then resume. Press the icon again. You also have the plus symbol, which basically is how you create a new project. You just hit the plus symbol and you will bring in a new photo to start a new project. The eye icon is what I currently have selected. That shows you what everything represents. To the top right, you see there is an undo and a redo button, and then there's a settings button. When you select the settings button, you'll see that you have an option to color code the different functions within the app, and you'll see how this works in a minute. Down below, you'll see various different options for controlling how you put together your animation. So the bottom left corner is the actual animation tool itself. It consists of an arrow. So with this icon selected, you can just start drawing on your screen. You can see here little tiny arrows. The direction of the arrow is important. Wherever the arrow is pointing, that's the direction of the animation. If you want to go downwards, then you have the arrow go downwards. I'm gonna go ahead and undo that for a moment. As you go across the bottom taskbar, you'll see you also have, let me put the eye icon back on. Next to the animation tool is the mask icon, and here you can use the masking tool to actually mask out certain areas that you do not want to animate. And then next to that is the eraser tool. So let me leave that mask there. If I went to the eraser tool, I can then use that to erase the mask that I just added. The anchor tool is also really important because it provides a little bit more precision to how you block out the areas that you do not want to animate. And I'm going to show you how all this works in a moment. And then there's the selection tool. So let me go back to animate and add an arrow here. If I wanted to get rid of the arrow, that's when I would use the selection tool to then select that mark and then hit the X mark to remove it. And then there's the speed icon that controls the speed of how fast you want your animation to go, basically. You can also control or crop your composition, and as you can see, there's a wide range of options to choose from. Then there's, of course, the share icon, and this enables you to share your icon as an animated PNG, as a video file, or as an animated GIF. So this app really comes with a lot of really cool features, but the best part of all, of course, is how you animate still photos. So let me go back to the beginning here. I'm going to select the animation tool and just kind of give you an idea what my plan is. I want the water to move or animate as if it is directed toward the bottom right hand corner. So I'm going to use the logic of 1-point perspective, assuming that the point is at the bottom right of this photo. And I'm just going to take arrows and I'm going to point them as if they're coming from this one point and then gradually point them out into the horizon so that it looks as if everything is emanating from the right hand corner. I like to use short arrows rather than long ones because the long ones will stretch out your animation to encompass a larger area. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But for my purposes, I want to keep it pretty isolated and minimal in terms of the motion so that it appears smoother. So let me actually go ahead and play this back so you can see how it looks. So as you can see, the water is moving upwards toward the horizon exactly the way I planned it out. But of course, you see everything else is kind of moving as well. The water is sort of pushing the landscape and the sky and everything at the same time. And I do not want this to happen. I want to have a little bit more control over how this happens. And that's where the masking tool or the anchor tools come in. So if I was to take the masking tool, and you can see here, you can control the size of the masking brush. I could take this masking tool and just go in and mask out areas that I do not want to be animated. So just say if I very quickly just went ahead and just animated this section along the horizon. Now if I go ahead and play that back, you'll see that now everything is animated except the area that I just masked out. And it's also a different way that you can do this too. And you can do this in conjunction with the anchor approach to masking out. I'm going to undo this mask for a moment. Maybe I'll redo it and just use the eraser mask to erase that mask. That's another way to do it. I'm going to now use the anchor tool option. The anchor tool option basically enables you to block out areas the same way, but with a little bit more subtlety to it. So I'm going to go ahead and select the anchor tool, and I'm going to place little anchors. They're basically dots, and you can control the color of those dots in the settings icon. And I'm going to go around the circumference of the building and the landscape here, where the trees are on the right hand side. I'm just going to go ahead and go around the circumference of all of this. And now I'm going to go ahead and play that back, and you can see that now I have the water animated, but it also is blocking off anything that goes beyond where I just placed the anchors. The only place where I have animation is in the left-hand corner, because I didn't go as far to the left. So if I stop that, now if I take my anchors and go all the way across the horizon, you'll now see that everything above the horizon is now static. So now I've created a lot more control over how I want my animation to go. This is really cool. Now what's also really nice is, as I showed you earlier, is that you can actually control the speed. So with the speed icon selected, I can go all the way up to 10.0 and create a really fast animation. It's not as graceful this way, so maybe I'll go back more closer to 8.0. And that's kind of about how I would like to see it. Now I also would like to animate the sky. Now with the anchors blocking out certain areas, this will actually add a little bit more grace and allow me to isolate my animation. So now when I go and animate the sky, the animation in the sky will be isolated from the water. So the water will have one kind of animation and the sky will have another. So let me go back to the animation tool, and I'm going to treat the sky the same way, only this time I'm going to treat it as 1 point perspective, but the point is going to be in the top left corner rather than the bottom right. So I want all my arrows to be pointing in the direction of the top left corner. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw arrows as if they're going to this corner. So I'm using 1 point perspective logic here to animate the sky. So now when I play that back, you'll see that I have a separate sky motion that is slightly different than the motion in the water. And it's really that simple. You play around with the masking tools and the anchor tools, as well as the animation arrows. Make sure they're pointed in the direction that you want them to go in, and you're pretty much set. If for any reason you need to remove an anchor and or an arrow, as I showed you earlier, it's pretty easy. You just select the selection tool, and then select any arrow or dot and just hit the X, and that will remove it. Yeah, the application is a lot of fun, and the more you play around with it, the more creative you can actually get. Let me actually go ahead and share with you some other projects that I've worked on so you can see just how creative you can be. So I'm going to go back to project mode, and you can see some examples of other things that I've done. Here's actually another landscape here. Very similar situation here where I have arrows going in different directions. I used anchor points where the cliff is, and I likewise separated the sky from the water to produce very similar effect. In this case, the water's going toward the left, and the sky I actually have moving upwards. I've also done some really creative things, like with other apps, like I've manipulated images so that it would have a illustration kind of effect. So in this case, I used the Reflect app and the Bazaar app to create a collage image and then to create these reflections, including the reflection of the female figure in the water and as well as the boat in the water. Use the Reflect app for that so that I could create my own sort of romantic, sort of sentimental kind of scene here. And then I used anchor tools, as you can see here, the green dots, to block out the areas I did not want to move, which is the female figure and the ship. And the arrows are moving in different directions. Obviously in the sky, I'm using a 1 point perspective logic where everything is from the horizon and then pointing out in different directions this way, with the water having its own animation. So when you play it back, you see that the boat and the female figure are still but the sky and the water have their own animations. So like I said, you can be very creative with how you utilize Plotograph, and it's really quite a remarkable application. I even actually tried it out with a painting by Van Gogh, who is inherently an expressionist. So wouldn't it be nice if Van Gogh could actually use those animated brushstrokes and literally animate them? So I thought, wow, maybe we can do that with Plotograph. So I went ahead and have arrows going in directions of the brushstrokes to sort of bring Van Gogh's painting to life. And this is the result that I came up with. So you can see here I used the green dots to isolate the trees and the path and the horizon and the tree. So they're isolated, and within those isolations, they have their own unique animations. So it's pretty cool. I mean, like I said, you can have a lot of fun with Plotograph. It's an app that can really bring out creativity that you never thought you had before. So that is Plotograph. Check it out in the App Store. My name is Tim Brown. You can check me out at myapplepodcast.com as well as youtube.com/myapplepodcast. See you next time.